Hello everybody, my name is Eunice. I'm a registered nurse and the owner of Florida Training Academy. And of course I live in the beautiful city of Jacksonville, Florida. And tomorrow is my hip surgery. Yes, I'm finally getting my hip replaced. And so I have this beautiful lady behind me who just like stopped. And so I wanted to come out and talk. And you all, she is catching fish. There's a woman out here. Let me put her on camera. Hey, so yes, I made a new friend. She's gonna teach me how to fish, but regardless, tomorrow is my hip replacement. And so people are like, hey, you're too young to have a hip replacement, but I'm 46 and I think that 11 years of pain, discomfort, numbness, etc., I think that's long enough to determine whether or not I want to have my hip replacement. And so this video is going to be talking about what led up to the hip replacement. I'll shoot a video later tonight which shows you the equipment and the whole process. And so I think that my bone issues spurred from me having a geriatric pregnancy. My first child I delivered when I was 35, and so that bone loss, the baby pulled the calcium out of my bone. And I complained about having hip pain the entire pregnancy. But of course, nobody really listened. They weren't too concerned. They were more concerned about the baby than they were me. Don't ask me what happened, y'all. I think just being a new mom, I kind of forgot that my hip was still hurting. And like 2 years later, when my son was 2, I go back to the doctor. And I'm like, hey, doc, my hip's still hurting. And so I got a referral to an orthopedic surgeon. And the doctor, I didn't like his disposition, because even though he knew I was a new mom, you know, with a child, he was like, oh, you need to have a hip replacement. And I said, so you're not going to schedule physical therapy? I can't get any other treatment? He was like, no, you need a hip replacement. And so maybe if he would have worded it differently, I would have taken him more seriously. But I just went ahead and I was like, well, I don't like this doctor. I was asking about physical therapy. He refused to prescribe physical therapy. So I just kept living with the pain. The pain medicine I would take is usually like a Motrin or a Tylenol, nothing too major. And so about 2 years ago, I started having knee pain, because now my body's trying to compensate from having the hip issue. I've been putting most of my weight on the other side, and so my knee was swelling. I'm like, oh my God, now I need a knee replacement. And I go to the, and let me tell you this, the doctors don't talk. So the knee doctor is separate from the hip doctor, but thankfully everybody's in the same organization. So, so I go to the knee doctor, and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, hey, how will I know if I need a hip replacement? And he said, you will know because you will come to me and ask me for the hip replacement. And he scheduled me physical therapy. He gave me injections. The knee injection worked perfectly. The hip injection did nothing whatsoever. So for me, that was a waste. But in the midst, I'm paying for most of this out of pocket, you all. So I'm paying for my therapies. I'm paying for stretch sessions, massage. I'm using heat. Turmeric worked well for me for many years, and so I didn't have to go for anything stronger, because I would just take natural supplements to decrease inflammation. And so finally, my son's older now. He turned 11 last week, and it took about 2 months to get the surgery scheduled. And so that whole process, the doctor I chose is actually a different doctor than I initially saw 2 years ago. There was a nurse who came into my office, and I dropped a piece of paper, and I'm joking with her. I was like, hey, it's going to take me a second to get this piece of paper, because, I got a hip issue. She's walking with a cane, you all, and I didn't ask her why. And she's like, oh, I just had my hip replaced 3 weeks ago. And with her cane, she squatted all the way down to the ground and came back up again. And I said, girl, tell me, who's your doctor? And she said, Dr. Rizik at Ortho 1. I literally called 2 weeks straight. They were not returning my phone calls. I called 2 weeks straight, and then when I finally was able to get someone on the phone, I was like, hey, I have to have this surgery this summer. I cannot have the surgery during the school year, because I got to get my son back and forth to school. So they were able to get me an appointment. I think my appointment was in the beginning of June. So June, July, yes. So I started calling in May. I finally got an appointment to see the doctor in the beginning of June. And for me, I knew I wanted to have hip surgery. So it's like, look, just put me on the schedule. And he was like, well, I can put you on the schedule for July or August. I'm like, no, I need to be put on the schedule for July, because I've been trying to do this now since 2 months ago. Long story short, surgery's tomorrow. The team has been wonderful. When I tell you, I've already received calls from the physical therapist, the nurse navigator, I already have my prescriptions called in. I picked up my walker yesterday. I ordered a whole bunch of supplies off of Amazon, which I'll show you my setup at my house in a little bit. I hired one of my CNAs that I used to work with years ago, and so she's going to be my surgical assistant. She's going to take me to the hospital. She's going to make sure I get back into the house. And this is same day surgery, you all. I go into the hospital and I go home the same exact day. I'll be walking the same exact day. So I usually don't sit down anyway. So it's going to be, you know, really interesting because I still have to work. I'll be working remotely. I'll be working from my computer. I may not be able to do too much physical work, but I still have to work because I own the business and no one can run the business except for me. And so that's it, everybody. I'll go to the house. I'll let you know some of the equipment that I purchased, but keep me in your prayers. And I expect to have a full recovery within 4 weeks. I have to be back to work in that office next week, so you'll see me with my cane, my walker, whatever the case may be. But Florida Training Academy is my business, and my babies need to be trained. So, all right, everybody, keep me in your prayers. I love you.